want to waste. I don't want people.
Should be okay. It should be okay now.
Okay, yeah. So
okay.
yeah, no, but second half we've come out and carried on, the way we were playing first half and put our chances in. And Friend and Sanderson coming into that back three has made such a difference. And we just look a completely different team. And Graham on the right as well. He's also brilliant. I mean, you wouldn't think that Chong and Maxime Collin weren't in that team, would you? Really? They're almost forgotten about. And it just speaks volumes, doesn't it, with the strength in depth that we've got at the moment?
Yeah, it's a nice position to be in, isn't it?
It is at the moment, yeah. And let's continue with that momentum and try and climb up the table. And obviously 14th is a good position when you think about where we've been in recent seasons. And let's keep that momentum going and see where we can finish up.
Snatch your hand off of 14th right now.
I know, I bet you would, mate. But yeah, it's a long way from when Curtis played for us, obviously, in this league, obviously going back 10 years. But, we keep making progress and we're going in the right direction slowly. And it's going to take time, isn't it, to get to where we want to be. But I'd like to think that one day we will get there, and we've certainly got a good squad. We've got strength in depth. Like I say, McGree comes in for Chong and he's great. And then Graham comes in for Colin in recent games and he's been great. So yeah, there's no complaints from me at all at the moment. And, like I say, let's just back it up now with a couple of home wins this week and see if we can really mean business, and see where it can take us. But never look past the next game though, do you? Look at tomorrow night now and hopefully we can beat Bristol City tomorrow night and then on to Saturday.
Yeah.
I mean, special mention to George Friend. I think he's been excellent.
Yeah,
we said it last week as well. I mean, it's just been, even when he hasn't been playing, it's just been, his experience, the way he's conducted himself, he's just been top class.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
So how are you, Curtis, anyway, mate? You all right?
I'm all right, yeah. Other than sweating over getting the Wi-Fi sorted, I'm all right in general. Just cracking on. Still keep going as long as I can, and enjoying football. Yeah, that's the main thing, really. At this age, try and play as many games as you can and enjoy it as much as you can. And I'm certainly doing that at the moment, especially in front of goal. I'm back in my Blues form, to be fair.
I know.
So I was prolific at Blues. I think it's finally come back after 10 years. So it's not the position I'd want to be, being the top scorer. But I'll take it.
Yeah. And I guess you've got fond memories of your days with us as well, yeah, from like going back 10, 12 years, or 10, 11 years now, isn't it, since you signed? And
yeah. I said the contrast from me signing, elated to sign because I'd been obviously at the other team. I won't say the names on here because I might get thrown out of the conversation. I was at the other side of the village, shall we say, and I'd been frozen out. I'd had an injury, and then a lot of it became political over payments to West Brom and my contract and blah blah blah. And I'd just been left to rot. And then obviously I had my loan at Leicester. And it saved my career, to be honest, because after, such high expectation of myself at the club as well, and then got my shoulder injury, was kind of left on the side to rot. I'd not played for a year. Sven Goran Eriksson was the manager, called me up and kind of said, come and play for me. I just want you to express yourself and enjoy yourself. For me, that was a breath of fresh air. Went there, and then obviously after my loan was done in the December, I'd actually, a day before I went to Blues, I'd signed the papers to go on loan back to Leicester. And then my agent actually called me saying, like, the others have pulled the plug. And I was like, what? Going mad? And they said, no, because Blues have come in for permanent. And I was like, okay, thinking, it's Premier League. I knew Scotty Dan had just got injured, ripped his hamstring, hadn't he? So I saw it as, I'm going there to play. So I was elated, staying in the Premier League. And then, unfortunately, it didn't work that way. I came in, McLeish was playing the players that are already there. And I said, the worst thing that could have happened to me, listen, the club winning the cup was massive. But the worst thing that happened to me was because the club won the cup, as we started to struggle, mentally, he, in my opinion anyway, he always tried to get back to that cup winning team as much as possible. So if we were struggling, it's like, I'll get that back to that team. That gave us a great moment, and they'll get us out of the trouble. And that wasn't the right thing to do. So that first 6 months was tough. I remember just going back in terms of one thing that kind of stands out is going to Liverpool away. And, I'm looking around in the dressing room. There's no one fit. There's no one fit in my position. And I've got Stevie Carr, the captain, turning around saying to me, be ready all week. So, it's Liverpool, you're always going to be up for the Liverpool game. Going to Anfield, of course, it's a big chance for me. We go to the hotel, and I've looked around, I've realised that Martin Jurnić travelled. I was like, well, okay. I just assumed, he'd been out for 6 weeks with a broken toe or injured toe or something. I just thought, he's maybe just travelled, for keep the team together, keep the morale, and get him back in the group. So then I didn't think anything of it. Like I say, Skipper's told me I'm pretty much playing. Yeah, get there, get to the hotel, blah, blah, have the pre-match. And then in the morning, it's like, team's turned over, this is the team. I just stared at it, honestly, I just didn't look anywhere else other than just playing, because even when it flicked to the next screen, I was just flabbergasted that he'd now put someone in ahead of me that hasn't trained for 6 weeks. So that's how much he thought of me, to be honest. And then, and then from there, my head was gone, basically. And that game, obviously, we ended up losing 5-0. And again, I'm not saying that I would have made us win the game or anything like that, but I think in general, when you put someone that has been out for that long into the team, they're going to be at 6s and 7s, and they make everyone else kind of on edge. And that's what happens. You could see the natural reaction is, when you've been injured and been out for a while, you try too hard.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happened. And we ended up obviously losing 5-0, which inadvertently, last game of the season, we could have got away with the 1-1 and held on for the draw, but we needed to go and score. And then therefore, because we were going down on goals scored, me and Roger end up going up front. And then we lose the game 2-1 and we go down. And that seems a bit of a big picture to paint. But, if we lose that Liverpool game 2-0, I think we stay up.
Yeah.
And it's a different picture. And that's just because I always hold on to things that really have annoyed me in football. And I don't mind if someone's not having me, that's fine. But when you sign someone in the January and then, I was thrown in for the West Brom game. I was poor, but hadn't played for ages. And it was basically a second 11. I was thrown in for the Bolton game, similar, a second 11. And you're always like chasing your tail, trying to get a big performance. And then my big performance finally came against Spurs in the last day of the season. I think in my own opinion, I was very good. But it was almost like at that point, I was almost like 2 fingers up, like this is for me. Do you know what I mean? As much as it's I'm hoping to keep the club up, this is for me. And if anything, my mind was thinking, even if we stay up, I'm out of here. And then obviously, I think I can say this on here anyway, but we had the debrief the next day after that. And then the manager pulled me and kind of said, the way you played yesterday, brilliant. That's what we got you in for, blah, blah, blah. He goes, we're going to need that next season in the Championship. And I just turned around and looked at him. I said, like, you needed me this year. You needed it this year. Yeah. And that was my opinion right then. And my head was gone, and I didn't care how he took it, because my mind, I was going. I didn't want to play for him. Didn't mind him as a guy. Like, got on with him as a person. Yeah. I just mean, but just in terms of just misled, kind of in terms of my reasons for going there. So that was tough to take. And then obviously he went to the other side, and then Chris Hughton came in, and it was a fresh outlook. A whole new fresh team, obviously about 12 players left, which was going to be difficult, but the replacements we got in, a lot of experience, some young quality that have come through the club, but also a couple of other players have come into the club. And as we know, we had a good go at it. We had a good go at Europe. We had a good go at the playoffs. And it was a fantastic first season. I say fantastic. We didn't go up or get through to the later rounds of Europe, but in terms of the memories, 62 game season in the Championship, to get to the playoffs, have 2 FA Cup replays against Premier League opposition, Obviously, the away days in Europe, it was fantastic. And I think, like I say, when you look back at your career, you're obviously going to look at times when you've done this high moment, you had a promotion or whatever. But that as a full season was just a roller coaster. And the fact that that group had been almost mashed together because 12 of the players had left, it was such a togetherness. And the fact that we were playing Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, Thursday, there was no time off. We were with them more than our families sometimes, especially when you're flying abroad to Europe. And it was just, a great season and fantastic lads and some good footballers in there as well.
Yeah, I think the recruitment as well that season was excellent, wasn't it? With Marlon King, Chris Burke,
Well, that's the one good thing McLeish did. He signed Chris Burke before he left.
He
signed.
Wade Elliott. We've had Wade Elliott on before.
Yeah, Wade. Yeah, Stevie Caldwell. Obviously, we had a good. We still had the likes of Jordan Much there, Nathan Redmond. Obviously, eventually not that season, but Jack Butland came through. So we still had some very good players that were about to be unearthed. Because obviously after that, Jordan Much goes on and goes to Premier League. Nathan Redmond eventually leaves. I think, Nathan actually left after me. It was a combination of that core experience, like I say, the likes of I was experienced then, but not as old as Wade, as Stevie Caldwell. Obviously, Pablo Ibanez played in the World Cup with Spain, even though he was reasonably quiet because of his English. But played in the World Cup with Spain. Marlon, in terms of his personality, so he was a hard personality. So if you don't give him the ball, he'll tell you. And I think the group needed that. Do you know what I mean? So whereas like the older ones, we can maybe go back at him and say, F you, give it all that back. The younger ones will be like, I don't want to make a mistake again. And it kept people on their toes. And you needed those personalities. And ultimately, you scoring loads of goals. Big Ziggy popping up there. I remember notoriously the 4 goals at Leeds. What a day that was, So again, like me just talking about it now, I've got a big smile on my face.
Oh, a great day.
And we didn't even get promotion. Do you know what I mean? It's just because there's some really good days and
fantastic squad that was. Really was.
Yeah. For us as fans as well, I think it's the best season we've had since relegation, even 10 years later. It's the best season we've had in the Championship since we've come down 10 years ago,
it's a shame really because, I guess now we look years on, I know the money back then was probably, I think it was around the £40 million mark, wasn't it, for Premier League money? So the parachute payments, I guess, weren't as big, but our club obviously were willing to take that money and not reinvest it anyway. So it wouldn't have mattered if it was 100 million. It wasn't coming back to the squad. We obviously had a decent squad, and by no means were there low wages. We weren't the lowest wage bill, but in terms of actual transfers, I don't remember anyone getting bought.
No, I'm trying to think. I don't think there was anyone there.
I'm just thinking off my head. I think once Lee Clark came in, I think we might have bought a couple as I left. So maybe who was the striker? Sorry, from what's his name?
Oh, from
Clayton Donaldson.
Yeah, Clayton came afterwards. The mixed race lad as well.
Did we pay 2 million for Darren Ambrose? We paid 2
not
million.
Wes Thomas.
We paid
Matt Green.
Matt Green, that's it, Matt Green, because he'd been on fire. Matt Green scored 30 odd goals. I think it was the conference, was it still then? So he was on fire, and he'd already sort of been on trial with us the season before, kind of having a look at him. But we did pay for Daz Ambrose as well, and that was one that was Daz came as a unbelievable talent in the Championship, one of the Championship's best players, most exciting players. And he came and he unfortunately had the life sucked out of him. Just the way things were going, had the confidence sucked out of him for such a good player, good lad. I guess, coming from being the main man at Palace, obviously he still could have been the main man here. But it just never really worked out. And I think Clarkie's personality wasn't quite right at trying to get the best out of him.
Right.
We had players like Hayden Mullins as well, experienced player coming in, and sometimes it'd go from starting to not being in the squad for 3 games, and it was just it was obviously a mad time. But yeah, that second season is memorable for different reasons in terms of in the Championship compared to the first one, because it was it was chalk and cheese, really, if I'm being honest. The first season, you always felt we could have a right go as long as we kept that core of the squad fit. We knew that, don't get me wrong, if we went down to the bones and we're looking at the depth of our squad, we probably had a solid 15, 16 starters that could come in, like a Spectre or an Endor when he signed. Do you know what I mean? Like all these players. And then, we knew after that it was going to be, well, a young man's going to have to come in. A Callum Riley's going to have to come in. Mitch Hancock's going to have to come in. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it was almost very experienced or very inexperienced. We had no kind of middle ground. Yeah. And obviously, in that second year, Ravel Morrison came as well, who's obviously with me at Derby now, and what a fantastic player he was. Rob Hall player as well. Forget about Rob Hall. Rob Hall laid on quite a few goals for me that season as well. So there's again, great players, great lads. Had a couple of good loans like Leroy Lita, but unfortunately didn't work out. He ended up falling out. We had some good players through the doors, but just couldn't get it together on the pitch. And
Peter Lovenkrands as well is another one.
Pete. How can I forget about Pete? He was my gym buddy. Yeah, he was. He was my gym buddy. We were always in the gym together. And Pete, what a guy he was, personality-wise, and again, played in the Champions League, played at very highest level, played for his country. We had some very good players, but again, all these players that have played at this level, that level, very high levels, been in the Championship, it was still like, no, we're together, we're going to do this. And whether you're a Nathan Redmond who just trying to make your name, or you're a Marlon King that's been there, done that, worn the T-shirt, if we sat at a table, it wouldn't matter who. It wasn't the young table, the old table, do you know what I mean? All the different kind of cliques. It was just everyone was together, and that's what I loved about the squad.
So somebody's just asked, is Alex on your Christmas list?
Again, I honestly, I didn't. It's a strange thing for me to say, but I didn't dislike him as a person. I actually had an okay relationship as a person. But my big thing is, like I say, clarity. That's it in football. He's not picking me because he can't have not picked me because he didn't like me. But obviously he had a thing in his head that he wanted to play that team, and that's just my opinion. I'm sure a lot of people that watch me play probably think, well, he shouldn't have played enough games, because I wasn't great in the couple of games I played, but don't see me training every day and working my nuts off every day to make sure that I'm trying to show you what I've got. So listen, I've got nothing against him at all. Ultimately he signed me, but it was just a case of, like I say, I could have had the joy of going to Leicester and keeping myself going, keeping my momentum, because I was starting to play well and enjoy it again. And obviously I got taken to a Premier League club, the boost of, yes, I'm back in the Premier League, and then ultimately got relegated without playing a real part in it. And, it adds a relegation to your CV without actually being able to have a grasp on it. I've had relegations at Hull, I've had relegations at West Brom, and I own them ones because I was part of it. So I take it on the chin, and I take it to me because I was a big part of that. West Brom, I played 33 games. Hull, I played every game. The second time we went down with Hull, I played 30 games. So I take a big responsibility in that because I was part of that. Whereas I looked at, I look at it at Blues, and I was disappointed. I'd rather have been a part of it to say I gave my all. But if we did go down, unfortunately, it's on me. But it was like, I think I had 2 starts, which obviously one came last day of season. I think I came on 4 times.
Must have been really frustrating for you, obviously sitting on the sidelines, knowing that you might, you could make a difference to that team and not being given the opportunity.
Yeah, I think, like I say, I think there's different times. Like when Ridgie and Rog, if they're playing centre half, like then that was. I'm not saying that's fine, but what I'm saying is like they kind of knew each other's game. They were. Sometimes that the old guard sometimes is going to get the nod. That's fine. But it's the case of when someone was injured, that's the big thing that kind of threw me, and that's the thing that made me lose my head. So I was frustrated on the sideline at first, but it wasn't a case of because I should be in instead of him. It's never been the case. It's just my own frustration. I've been signed here to play and I'm not playing. But then once I was left out for an injured player, basically, that's when I thought, I'm done. And that sent me almost backwards because, you know, having, like I said, had a year out from losing my head of being just left on the side while I'm fit, and then signing for Blues, thinking, here we go again, I'm starting all over again.
Yeah.
It then was, oh, hang on. Now I'm actually just sitting on the bench with some, actually on the bench rather than in the stands this time.
Yeah.
You know, I looked at our bench, and when I talk about that the gaffer wanted to get back to the team that won the cup, you know, I'm sitting on the bench, I'm looking around. Obafemi Martins, David Bentley, Alexander Hleb, Ziggy, Kev Phillips, you know, Dave Murphy or Parno, whichever one was on the bench that day. And I'm like, with all due respect, how can Bent's not getting this team? How can David Bentley not getting this team? Alexander Hleb, I understand he's a different type of player, but you know, if we're losing a game, what kind of player do you want to come on and change the game? Surely a Hleb that he plays in the hole and is able to make that key pass. And you got Kev Phillips. I know he couldn't possibly have played all the games if you know, if you say, oh, his body maybe couldn't do it, but you know, he's a natural finisher. He's the most natural finisher I've played with. I played him with obviously at 2 clubs. So yeah, it was bizarre. You know, Obafemi Martins, I know he played the cup, but even sometimes, you know, he's on the bench in the league because we wanted to go for a bit more direct style and a bit more, we'll turn them and we'll do it from there. But you think, Obafemi Martins, like this guy is a Pro Evolution legend. You know? but like he's it just made me laugh with Oba. That's just a quick thing. I had to laugh at Oba because obviously people always laugh and say about his age and stuff like that. And I said, I turn around to him and say, Oba does one day, what? How old are you? And he goes, oh yeah, I'm like 29 or whatever he was. So basically, he was only like a year older than me at the time, whatever he said. And I laughed. I went, no way, mate. I used to play with you and Babangida up front on ISS Pro Evolution 1. So just used to wind him up and you used to laugh. But yeah, like it was just, for me sitting there, you know, when you sit on the sidelines, especially you take it all in, to think that those players couldn't get a game when we're struggling.
Crazy.
Was crazy.
Yeah.
Have you been converted? Have you been converted to FIFA now, Curtis, rather than Pro?
Do you know what? I got taken away from the game when I had my first daughter. She's 13 next week. So as soon as I was like doing. I know I've got a picture on my phone where I used to play Gears of War. I think it was called. With my brother and some friends online when it first started online. I've got a picture of me with my daughter on my shoulder playing the game. And I was thinking, I can't do this anymore. And I just, in the end, your evenings just get taken over by washing bottles, doing this, doing that. And then eventually you lost it. Yeah.
I've just come off Mario Party Superstars on the Switch with my missus and Nick.
Do you know what? My missus bought me a Switch because she said, that's a good one because I can go and play it on my own when I'm on away trips. She don't want me playing at home though. So,
on the subject of kids, we've got a question from a 10-year-old, Lisa Fields' young lad. He says he's a striker and he wants to know what position did you play and what age did you play football? I think when you first started.
Yeah. So, as always, everyone, I was a striker. As always. So. From a kid, nobody grows up wanting to be, you know, as much as there's been some great centre-halves in time, nobody grows up wanting to be a centre-half. You know, in my year, I was watching Romario, Bebeto, Ronaldo, Eric Cantona was my hero. I grew up a Man U fan. You know, Andy Cole, Dwight York. So you always wanted to be a striker. You want to be the magic man. And everybody does, that's what I was. Yeah, and that's what I was as a kid. You know, as a kid, particularly, I was not necessarily that much bigger than everyone else, but I was a little bit bigger than the rest, and I was lightning quick. So when it came to Sunday League, I'd score 50 goals a season just from playing behind. I'd outrun them, and I'd just smash it high because the keepers are small. So it just used to be, I had an ability to smash it high knowing that they won't be able to save it. So that was my thing. And then I think what happened is I played district football, I played county football. So district I played anywhere they wanted me to, but a lot of times centre mid. And county, I actually started as a right wing back, but then played up front and then played defence. So I played everywhere, but it was once, I think I was 14 and my Sunday League team, we had a big centre half at 14 that was like 6'2", and beard and everything. So he was the early mature one, and he broke his leg. And I was kind of like the next biggest as such, but I was a good footballer. I could play anywhere. So I was asked, would you play centre half for the rest of the season? Just, Adrian's not going to be back, blah, blah. So I went there and I was with my best mate that went to my school and everything, and ended up becoming the Twin Towers. We just dominated games and started to enjoy it. Obviously still like playing up front when I went to district and county and stuff like that. But yeah, it became my position. And then eventually when I started going on trials to different levels, be it to county, I started playing that position more so than actually saying I'm a forward. And then, and then eventually I was scouted as a defender. And that's kind of where I got stuck in the end. If I'd been scouted as a striker, prolific striker, I'd have been all right. But I went to Wimbledon as a kid, 15 years old. My PE teacher had a link with them, but also the guy that scouted me, Martin Hedder, he'd seen me play for my county. So it was kind of, I got sent because of, basically I got sent rather than the other lads because of my attitude. So in terms of at school, there were probably about 3 or 4 of us on the same level, but my teacher knew he could trust me. So because he knew he could trust me, I wasn't going to get in a fight. I wasn't going to be rude. I was going to be P's and Q's and all that. He knew he could trust me, and that's what got me more than the other lads. So, sliding doors moments that I was given an opportunity because I was a nicer lad or a better kid at school. And then I went on trial. I got a year's contract just before you go to scholar. And unfortunately for me, I had 4 months of that was growing pains in my hips, where you maturity and all that. And unfortunately, the writing was on the wall, but I've always been proactive that I saw that I was going to get released because they had a lad down from Newcastle that had just been released from Newcastle. And he was down like pretty much like twice a month kind of thing for games, just so they could keep an eye on him kind of thing. So I kind of saw the writing on the wall. They're going to sign this kid, but I just stayed there, got the best training I could, tried to get in front of as many other teams in terms of coaches from the neighbouring teams that we play against as much as I could. And then when I got released, I was ready mentally, and I wrote off a load of CVs to 30 odd clubs in the southeast, and then Luton came in, and that was it. And that's where I went. And again, I tried to kind of revert to I can play anywhere.
Do you literally write a CV?
I did.
Is that what you do?
Well, this is what I did. Back then, not every 15-year-old, 14-year-old had an agent. And I didn't have an agent until I was 20-odd anyway. Yeah. But it was a case of, I've always been taught you don't ask, you don't get. So I'm not a beggar, but if I don't ask, you don't get. And basically, it was at the time we just finished school. So at school, you'd just done your CV in terms of working CVs. Yeah, of course, you just learned how to put it together. So I just implemented that structure into a football CV. So Brilliant. From there, I just wrote, teams played for, doesn't matter to them, but it's like Waltham Forest Youth, Grasshoppers, positions played, goals scored, height, weight, and ultimately I said, whether it was the thing that made them actually read it because I'd sent a CV rather than saying, please, can you give me a trial? Then obviously they noticed it. And for me, the best thing that ever happened was obviously Luton came 2 days after I sent the letter, and I went straight there and never looked back. It's the best thing that ever happened to me because, if I think to Wimbledon, if I'd got a scholar there, they ended up turning him to MK Dons and moving a couple of years into it. So that might have been a difficult thing to then be at home, to then uproot and everything like that. So, it's the best thing that ever happened to me.
And in your career today, Curtis, would you say the best player is that you played with so far?
The best player, unfortunately for you lot, would be Ashley Young.
Okay, yeah. No,
Ashley Young, at my time, obviously at the other side, he was phenomenal. Yeah, he was unplayable at times, and I don't want to be waxing lyrical about a villain, but he was fantastic. Literally, and when you talk about the good players we had in our team in terms of Gabby was flying. Again, I shouldn't say that word on here either. He was flying.
Language.
Yeah, that's
Gareth,
even worse.
Obviously. Yeah, Gareth was obviously a top player. We still had Milner, people like that. But if chips were down, the game plan was get the ball to Ash.
Yeah,
and he'd make something happen. And that's how good he was.
And what about at Blues? Who would you say at Blues was the best player you played with?
That's a difficult one. I'd probably say in terms of the ruthlessness, I'd possibly go with Kingy.
Yeah.
Just because he was just ruthless, just natural goal scorer. Like I say, ruthless personality in terms of he'll tell you exactly what he thinks, which again, like I say, with our squad, probably, mixed it up a bit rather than everyone being nicey. But yeah, just a ruthless finisher. He goes through on goal. I'm ready turning back to the halfway line, thinking
nobody's going to score.
Yeah, that's kind of so.
Yeah.
But saying that, I will say, Chris Burke as well, because Berkey that first season, particularly more so, second season he was good as well, but first season unplayable. I think he got something like 9 goals and about 14 assists. So Berkey was unreal that season as well, which obviously helps Kingy get those goals.
And what about against, Curtis? Who's the best player you've ever played against, would you say? Like, who's give you the...
So, best I've ever played against would be Alexis Sanchez. And the Arsenal Alexis Sanchez, not the Man U one.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Not his brother. So, yeah, when I speak about the best players I played against, it's the likes of Tevez, Aguero, Sanchez, the South Americans, obviously Rooney, fantastic as well, because he's got that same kind of bite. But it's the ones that they'll run with you, they'll jump with you, they'll fight with you, they'll chase you back. But then they'll do all of that, all the hard work and all the gritty bits of the game. But when they get the ball to their feet, they still got quality. And that's what Sanchez had. And, during his time at Arsenal, I think probably played whole 3, maybe 4 times. And I think he scored about 6 goals. Yeah, because you scored 2 in the FA Cup final for Hull, didn't you? I scored 1. I scored the second one. We put us 2-0 up. But he wasn't at Arsenal at that time. It was Giroud up front that day. But in general, he was just a player that, like I say, you can try everything with him, but he'll find another way. Yeah. I said I'm probably about 6 inches taller than him, but he'll still jump with you, and he's got a decent leap on him. So now and then he'll shock you and win a header. And when you've got someone that's willing to go every single inch of the game with you, and you're always constantly over your shoulder, where is he? It's a long afternoon, put it that way. Especially Arsenal back then, with all due respect, were top 4 team pushing all the way. Obviously we're winning every FA Cup kind of every year, but still top 4 team pushing all the time. Had the likes of Ozil in the team, very excellent players in the team that you have to worry about all of them. So you can't even just focus on Sanchez, and that was the issue. If you can focus on one player, it's easy. But when you've got good players all throughout the team, it was a difficult few afternoons playing against him. Yeah, sure. We've got a brilliant comment coming in from Jason Hughes as well, one of our regular viewers. He just said, Curtis scored 2 goals v Watford in my lad's first ever Blues game in a 3-0 win against Watford in January 2012. Yeah, that was special because being an ex-Luton player, getting a brace against Watford was nice. But it was my dad's birthday as well that day. It was my dad's birthday, 21st of January. So it was my dad's birthday. So it was, it was a good day. Obviously, I got the first one. I remember, I think it was Keith Fahy whipped one in, and it was kind of an instinctive, like stooping header, but it ended up being a bullet. Went in the top corner. I was like, oh, nice, that's a good header. Ran off to my dad celebrating. And then the second one was like, I think I jumped about 9 foot, came to it was like a overhit corner. It went to the back seat. I'm not sure it was Jordan Much took that one this time or still Berkey, but I just leapt above everyone and just smashed it in. But it was like, if you see me at the end of the game, we're 3-0 up and I should really just be defending. But we've had a free kick. I end up staying up top and I'm spinning to the back post, like, screaming for the ball. Yeah. So I had to get a hat-trick. And even when Berkey scores, because Berkey scored the 3rd goal, I'm kind of in the box and I'm screaming for the ball and he scores. And I almost had that second of, when you talk about the selfish striker that's not happy if he hasn't scored, I almost had that second of, he should have gave me the ball to, I go celebrate with him. You see my pause, like almost upset that he didn't pass me the ball, but that was big. And I scored a brace against Barnsley as well in the second season with Clarkey on Boxing Day. Yeah, so that was a good day as well, especially Christmas. Family obviously came up to the game and stuff. Well, my missus was there and stuff like that. So it was a good game to get a couple.
Kurt, we'll just come back to you, Kurt. I just want to move on a little bit. Craig, we've got some other special guests here with us. Maybe you can pick up on the story.
Yeah, so we are obviously joined by Sharon, Dave, Ryan, and the family. And for all of our viewers, you'll remember that a few weeks ago now, we were sending goodwill messages to Dave after he had been unfortunately taken ill in the Tilton, and we stayed in touch with Sharon and Ryan via social media, got all the updates. We'd obviously got the video of the guests, etc., together, and really pleased indeed to have Dave joining us this evening. And it's a way really of us making sure that Dave, you continue to get well, and I understand Sharon as well, and also from Ryan that you wanted to pass on your thanks to not just the listeners but the fans overall, and I think especially those people in the Tilton Road on that particular day. You know, I was there. I wasn't in that particular block. I was by the side, but to see the way the fans rallied, supported, and helped was just absolutely fantastic. Yeah. So I guess, Sharon, can I hand over to yourself to see, you know, if you wanted to say a few words, and Dave as well.
Sharon, maybe you could pick up the story as well, Sharon, and tell us the full story, because a lot of people probably don't know.
I don't actually know the full story.
What you know?
Dad was because Dad doesn't remember, which is probably a good thing. But a good friend of his, he was at the, at the game starting.
Yes, he was well into.
Yeah.
Was it?
Knowing Granddad, he turned up late.
And he actually hadn't had a beer, which was quite astonishing.
There's something wrong there.
Yeah. Well, we'd been to Duran Duran the night before, you see, in town. So I think he was probably me and my dad party, shall we say?
Oh yeah.
Dad always outdoes me, and we'd had quite a late night, so I think he was a little bit.
Come back about 1 o'clock in the afternoon with his big coat on, a bit dishevelled.
Dirty, stop it.
And actually wasn't going to go the Blues that night. He felt that rough, but well, not rough, but he didn't quite feel himself. And he was, you know, am I going to go the Blues? And thank God he did, because, you know, we'd be sitting here with him now. If it wasn't for the fact that there was ambulances, you know, obviously, and, you know, all the right people, you know, at the football. I mean, it's just watching Newcastle, you know, a couple of weeks later, you know, knowing what we'd just been through was horrifying. Dad actually come running in.
And the West Brom game as well.
Yeah, but Dad actually come running in, going, "Oh, what happens then? What happens?" You know, and I'm sitting there feeling sick to my stomach, absolutely like, you know, oh my God, you know, knowing what the guy's family's going to go through and are going through, and Dad's like, you know, well, what happened? Because he doesn't remember anything. But you know, Martin Green was the guy sitting next to him, you know, a good friend of ours, and he's my hero. You know, he took him to, you know, he was with him to the hospital. I was actually at work doing meds, so luckily I'd got my phone right next to me, and no one told me anything. They just said, you know, he's had a bit of a funny turn. He's at, you know, what's his date of birth, etc. And I'm just like, well, you know, it just doesn't hit you at all.
No.
I've got to say, on that particular day, you know, there's an awful lot of should we say, negative messages that we see and hear about in terms of the stewarding and the way people are there to support. But on that particular day, I'll never forget, they were just brilliant. They were absolutely superb.
Well, fantastic.
And all credit to, you know, from myself, I said it before, but all credit to every single one of them that was there and supporting on that particular day. And I know, Ryan, from your Twitter feeds and information, you were saying exactly the same thing, was those people in and around just helped massively, and massive kudos to everyone at the club. And I will say I've also said that to people at the club to say how well they did, and it was just fantastic to have such a positive outcome to everything that happened that particular day.
We have got some fantastic supporters, really have.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I heard that the way they partied, and moved out the way and everything was phenomenal. And I've just heard positive from everybody that was there. And poor Ryan, he hears and he doesn't even know it's his granddad, and
game messages through during. I couldn't go to the game because I was ill. Had me COVID jab a couple of days before, so I wasn't at the game. And you sort of seeing the messages pop through saying, "Oh, what's happening in Block 9?" I don't know why. For some reason, I thought it was in Block 2, even though it's shut. So it didn't even cross my mind. And then obviously, sort of messages are popping through. And then Brett called me with about 15 minutes to go. And I just looked at my phone and went, "Blues are playing, what are you calling me for?" Threw my phone down. Then the text messages started coming through.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Crikey.
Just a strange, I suppose a bit of a strange evening then. I mean, obviously we're still kind of half piecing together what happened on the night. I think my auntie kind of got the full story, but we kind of avoided sort of asking too many questions about what happened on the night, and just can't say thank you enough to. I mean, obviously you mentioned Martin, mentioned the stewards, the ambulance, and obviously all the fans around.
Because the doctor from the Blues, from what I know, travelled in the ambulance with my dad till he got to the hospital, which above and beyond. Well, I mean, I don't know if that's regulation or above and beyond. I mean,
fantastic, absolutely.
Poor dad, he's completely like, he doesn't remember a thing, and it's so like.
And how is your dad now?
Up on the Saturday.
Yeah.
From an induced coma in hospital on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, don't exist to me. But I get the feedback from the children and from friends that were at the game that mentioned, not names, but certain people reacted quicker than others, which could have helped save my life, really, in the Tilton supporters.
Fantastic.
What happened for Tilton?
Yeah, and that's the first time I've got in there.
It was absolutely amazing sight. I was at the other end of the ground, and I saw all these people walking around the ground. I thought some silly protest about the stand not being open or something. There was an exact amount of seats that were empty, and I thought it can't be that. And then people started to understand what was going on, and it was an absolute amazing sight to see all these people leaving their seats and getting out the way, and then people attending you, and it was remarkable, absolutely remarkable. You think the worst. Oh, what are these silly idiots doing, running around? But they were saving your life. They're getting out of the way so people could get to you. It's fantastic.
Yeah, from what I've heard, it was like a parting of the waves.
Yeah.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
It's just incredible. I mean, we will do the rounds at some point, and go take chocolates and whatever else, at some point, just to whoever, But like I say, we're still piecing it together at the moment.
And also, Craig, a lot of former players and so forth got together and put a video together for us, didn't they?
They did.
Yeah.
And
do you know what that said? What they've done that for?
Because we enjoy doing it.
Sorry, he's going to kill me later. But no, because he doesn't comprehend it. He just can't. Sorry, Dad.
No.
And I understand that the club got in touch as well, and you'd had good wishes from the club as well, which I think is fantastic. I mean, we always say it. And Curtis will remember from his time there as well. But we are a family club at the end of the day. And everybody is there for each other.
Yeah, we've had so much. Well, Dad's had, he's had a signed shirt. Someone got in touch then with Ryan and framed the shirt.
Cool.
Someone's got in touch and said, want to have a VIP dinner in the Jasper Carrot box, and an experience for that, and we're waiting on, which Dad doesn't know about the possible visit from a player or two from the club. Sorry, Dad.
Ooh.
I think the big thing though is because every time something happens, Grandad's sort of looking around and going, "What are they doing it for me for?" But it's kind of always easy to say, but Grandad is one of the most generous people around. And we keep having to tell him that if this happened to somebody else, he'd be at the front door and he'd be doing all sorts of stuff.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of hard to tell him and hard for him to accept. But
Dad's never been ill a day in his life, basically. So this is all completely new to him, and he hasn't got a clue about, 71, not been ill. Doctors don't even know where the doctors is, basically. I mean, lucky.
Yeah, it's great to see you're on the men, mates. Anyway,
fantastic, absolutely brilliant, really brilliant. So back to Curtis. We need to look at your 1 to 11, don't we?
We do.
Oh, Chris, just before we do,
yeah, sure.
I've got a question, Curtis. From if I ask you the question, you might know where it's come from. It's two things.
I don't like this.
The first thing is, can you tell us? I know it isn't at Birmingham, but apparently there's a little bit of a funny story about an Albion trip to Dubai, and also arrange the possibilities of your international call-ups, because I believe there were 3 countries that you could have played for.
So I'll start with the. I'm guessing this is carts, by the way.
It's not carts.
It's not carts.
No.
You're close. He's very good friends with carts.
Oh, Luke.
It is Luke.
Yeah, Luke Carroll. There we go. So the Dubai trip, that was just that was the beginning of the end for our season, to be honest. At West Brom, we'd obviously been in and around the relegation, and then we had the Dubai trip planned because it was a free week because of I don't think it's international. I think it might have been we were out of the FA Cup or something like that. So a bit of team bonding was booked. We were going to go to Dubai on the Sunday morning or Saturday night, wherever it was, or Sunday morning, sorry. But we played Fulham. So we played Fulham in London. First of all, we played the game. We lost 6-1. I think they had 7 shots and scored 6. Never great for a defender. But, and then from there, after that, we didn't win a game. We did that. So that was kind of curtailed our season as such. But in terms of this trip, I wasn't 21 yet. So it was just before I was turning 21. So I don't want to get banned from Dubai or anything. But in England, you get away with it. You just like, nah, he looks old enough, he'll be fine. But in Dubai, you had to show ID everywhere. So we had to do some like CSI type, because basically you're allowed to take out a photocopy of your passport rather than taking the whole thing. So I had to use Daz's passport, as in Darren Carter's passport, have a photocopy of that, then photocopy mine, stick on the picture, re-photocopy it. So basically there were 2 Darren Carters going in the club at the same time. But we had to stagger it, and I had to go in be it 10 minutes later just to make sure, because if they look at it, if we both got exactly the same name and exactly the same date of birth, this is a bit suspicious. So I think that's the story he's given anyway. Anything else other than that, I'm not too sure. Other than Robbo, other than Robbo being in the pool for 12 hours a day and drinking everyone under the table, I don't think there was much else.
Craig, is that the full story, Craig?
To be honest, all I was given was Albion trip to Dubai, so this is even more.
Right, okay.
Yeah, there was. I think there was a fire extinguisher let off as well in the hotel, which which cost someone a lot of money. Probably someone that's been on this podcast was involved in that as well. So that might be giving it away as well.
You never know. Mark, you've been quiet. Have you got any questions for Kurt?
No. I'm just fascinated listening. To be honest,
it is a good listener. A lot of people.
Sorry, I didn't answer the international one, did I? Either.
The national.
Sorry, I waffled on. So obviously, I could play for England, play for the 21s. I'd been involved with the England squad in terms of 30s, and I was on the bench against Germany in 2008. But I could have played for Ireland via my grandmother, but. If my nan was Irish, I would have. There would have been some pride in it. But my nan was. I'm probably the last person that should have played for Ireland. Basically, my nan was born in the north because my great granddad was in the British Army.
Oh yeah.
So I would have been the last person that should have played for the Republic of Ireland. Really, if you're going by those premises, So that kind of. But yeah. So she was born to English parents in Ireland and came back home. So. There was no Irish blood as such, so there was no pride in it. And the other one is Sierra Leone. So my dad's was born there, Sierra Leonean. And again, I probably would have thought about it a little bit earlier. I was holding on to the England dream, of course. Even at my time in Hull, I was 28 years old, and there was still talks I could possibly get in the squad. But I probably would have given it up and played for Sierra Leone. But since my time of being a footballer. You've had obviously conflict in terms of wars. You've had Ebola. Obviously, then COVID hits, and it's not the strongest FA financially. So I don't know what kind of conditions I'd be leaving my club to go for an international, getting all the way to be at Sierra Leone, or if you're going to play in wherever Guinea or whoever you're playing, to know what it was going to be like. And I think they've just now got to the African nations. And even then, if I had declared to try and play and try and be the glory hunter that nicked a place in the African nations squad, do you really want to leave your club for a month in January? It's the thing that always put me off. If they were on the European calendar, it might have been an easier decision because, I know I've got family out there that always look out for me and I'm going to be proud of it. But for me, it was just my club career came first because it was too hard because in football if you're gone for a month in January, especially a centre half, you lose your place, you won't get it back.
Curtis, have you been over there?
I've not been. No. My dad unfortunately my dad's only been back 3 times since he left, and he left so he was born 57, he left in 71. He's only been back 3 times for bereavements.
All right.
For the death of his auntie, his uncle, and my nan, his mother. So they're the only times he's been back. So for me, it was never like, my dad wasn't going over for a month in the holidays and then we go over as well. It was just a case of, it's never come around, but it's meant to be a beautiful place, and I do want to go there, but I kind of want to go there and do something. I don't just want to turn up and be, oh yeah, it's nice, whatever. I want to try and do something, be it with football, be it with charity, whatever it's going to be. I'd like to go over there and do something and have a purpose of going there.
Yeah, Robbo asked me to say hello to you, Curtis, and he said he'll see you Saturday.
Oh yeah, Robbo. Yeah, I forget he's with Gaz now. Obviously, Gaz being my old manager, Robbo being my teammate, so that's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry, Curtis. Talking of managers, Marlon King sent us a message before the show, and he reckons you make a good manager.
Oh, that's one of the questions on the shout box.
Was it? I think it's an interesting one, really. I think I've been captain everywhere I've been, in terms of not necessarily the club captain, but I've captained pretty much every side I've been, other than Leicester, which was a loan spell. So I've had managers before say to me that they can see it in me. I don't know. With me at the moment, when you're playing, it's hard to visualize it. I think if I think of it now, I'd sooner be the manager than the coach as such. I'd sooner be making decisions and be enforcing my personality onto people, that man management side and things like that. I think that would be my strength. I'm not saying I couldn't coach a team, but I think my strength would be in, controlling the players, having them, trying to get them on side and that side of it. But I think it's like anything. Once you retire, it will become clear. And the big thing with management and coaching, I've always said, you're better off being someone's good friend than being a good coach. It's very cliquey. So you're going to need to be a coach somewhere first to obviously get your name in the door. And then you go from there, and then maybe you get the bug for it and want to do more. But I think there will be a time when, even if, I finish football and then I go into the media, I think there'll be something that pulls me back. But yeah, it's one of those things that I think football's in me, and to not be part of it eventually would get to me.
Yeah. I think that's a yes.
That leads us.
Yes, that's definitely.
Good question here from Steve Portman. Actually, he just said best manager Curtis has played under, not necessarily the most decorated.
So I'd say the best in terms of the most impressive was Marco Silva at Hull.
Okay, yeah.
And the reason I say that, obviously, I've played for some good managers and some very well-respected managers, and I didn't necessarily play every game for Marco Silva, but he came into a squad that was basically in a relegation fight down. I think we were bottom, if not second bottom. And fair enough, he brought in a couple of players, but he just is meticulous nature in training, his attention to detail. It blew me away. The fact that, listen, we didn't stay up at the end of the day. We did still go down, but he managed to turn us into a side that were rolling over pretty much every week, wherever we went, to a team that we'd go to the big teams and actually compete. We might still get beat, but we're actually going to games and competing rather than being like, we're just going to hang on. We end up beating Liverpool 2-0 at the KC. We had some good results here and there. We beat West Ham, beat teams like that. But it was just his meticulous nature. We'd do a team shape and it could last for 5 minutes or 45 minutes. You don't know at the start of it. And he'd be, we're going to do this throw-in from over here, right side. And he'd make you do it 20 times till you get it right. And then even though you got it right on the right-hand side, it'd let it flow for another couple of minutes. Left-hand side, I want to do it again. So the left-hand thrower knows what he's doing. And it was just things like that. So basically from our same group of players pretty much, there was accountability. And you can see that I know where, if I were playing left wing, I know where I need to be when the ball's over there. If I were playing centre mid, centre forward, I know exactly where every person on the pitch needs to be. So if someone falls short, you can be on them. Hey, need you there. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And I think that's what he brought into the team. And for me, I'm surprised that it didn't work out for him at Watford. Obviously, Watford, they sack managers whenever. But I'm surprised it didn't work out for him at Everton. I don't know if it's the fact he had too many players and, the harmony in the camp when you've got a good group of players that all think they should be playing. I don't know if that was the case. But I totally back him to get Fulham back up this season.
His underlying numbers were good at Everton as well before he got sacked. Sure, his underlying numbers were really good before he got sacked there. So things were going well, he just wasn't clicking, presumably.
I think Everton was a club at that time. I think they've gone a bit more realistic now. I say realistic, they've obviously got Rafa there, but I mean, they obviously had free transfers and that this summer. But I think then, because they were spending all the money, they thought, well, hang on, I've got Gylfi Sigurdsson's 40 million. I've got him, that he was 30 million. I've got him. And they're thinking they can all just play and they're going to win games. I think that was the mindset. If we spend as much as everyone else, we're gonna get in the top four. Whereas, no, actually, you've bought 3 number 10s.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You've bought 3 number 10s and actually you probably needed a new centre-half. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So things like that were happening at the club. And the fact that you change manager, you've then got a manager taking over other managers' players. And that becomes a problem. So I think he was, I guess, victim of that. And he caught the back end of that kind of madness at Everton.
Going back, sorry, Paul. I've always wanted to know, going back to after we just won the Carling Cup, and going back, people talk about a cup hangover and all this lot. Do you reckon that was true, Curtis? For Blues?
I wouldn't say that. I don't think the lads thought they'd cracked it by any means. I couldn't say, I was turning up in training and lads are like thinking, giving it a chip on their shoulder. That wasn't the case. Obviously, lads would have enjoyed their weekend and probably milked it for a couple of weeks. But still, we knew we had a job to do. We knew that we had to get ourselves out of the situation. But like I said, the hangover of anything was in the manager's head. And just the fact that, if something was going wrong, he'd always try and revert as much as he could to that team. But ultimately, we weren't good enough in the end, regardless of whether it was attitude, whether it was ability, we didn't show enough to stay up. You know, there wasn't a fleeting time where you thought, well, we've got these 2-3 wins, we should be all right, and then we've dropped off again. There was never that big bounce after that cup final, I don't believe.
No.
How did you feel on a personal level? You know, when we went to the final and all the rest of it, knowing that you were cup tied, how did that feel? Could you sort of fully enjoy it, or you know, were you a little bit pang of, you know, bit jealousy or?
No, nothing at all. I can almost say I had similar at Villa, that I was in the stands because I'd been pied off, but I still wanted the lads to win for them. Do you know what I mean? Like, so that was my big thing with Blues obviously going to the final. My big thing was if we win, we're in Europe.
Yeah,
we can have a European tour. Do you know what I mean? Like, so that was my big thing. So I'm on the pitch celebrating like with Oba, but I know I'm not getting. As soon as the trophy came out, I was out the way. I don't want to be that guy with full kit on, trying to get in the front of the pictures. No, that's what I mean. I didn't want to be that guy because I'd not earned it, and that's the big thing. If I'd played in, maybe, you know, even if I played in 2-3 of the rounds, I might have been a little bit angry, but I'd not contributed anything towards it. So therefore, you guys go and enjoy your day and go and win the game. So that's fine with me. It's obviously disappointing because I played 13, 14 minutes to be cup tied, but in the end, you know, in hindsight, I wouldn't have played the game anyway. So it doesn't make a difference really anyway. And if you're on the bench and you get a medal, have you earned that medal still? As I said, I hadn't played a minute. So is that a medal that you're really proud of? My personality, obviously I'll take it and I'll put it in the safe, but I won't be getting it, oh, here's my Carling Cup medal, because it wasn't earned by me, it was earned by those lads that went out on the pitch and actually did the dirty work.
I still remember seeing you that day in the corner flag, actually celebrating with the team, but also as much with the fans, and it was just a great, one that sticks with everybody. But when you've got people like yourself that weren't playing but still were there celebrating, shows the camaraderie that was within that team at that point in time.
That's it. It was. That's what I said. Like I could easily have been the bitter one. Like Arsenal should have beat us today. It's Arsenal flipping. How they usually. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that wasn't. That never entered my head. I'm not like that. I'm. Even if it is, I thought I should be playing ahead of that person or anything. That wouldn't have, because I still, regardless whether I think I should be playing ahead of you or not, I still want you to succeed because you're my mate. That's always been my attitude. You know, I've always said you back your own worth. So my big thing is I know my own worth, and if I'm not at it, I know it. So if you take me out of the team, I'm probably gonna accept it reluctantly. Yeah. But I know at the same time, if I'm not in the team, but they're doing nothing wrong, even though I think I can offer more than them, if they're doing nothing wrong, there's no reason for them to come out of the team. So that's always been kind of the way I am. And like I say, that Carling Cup situation was just watch the lads, actually watching it as a fan for the first time in ages, watching a game as a fan and just being able to enjoy it. And obviously, how could you not be excited by the way it ended?
I mean,
do you know what I mean? How could I be sat there all numb, like they're actually going to win this? And that's why I was obviously running after Oba, and obviously after the game, it was just it was mad. It was brilliant.
I don't care. I've said this a few times on here now, and I don't care. I'm going to say it again. So Curtis, you was there with us to witness the only West Midlands club to win a major trophy in high definition.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I saw it in proper high definition because I was there, so that's good.
Curtis, when you joined West Brom, it was rumoured that we were competing for your signature. Now, was that true? Did you ever have talks with us at the time? And why did you decide not to come?
No, so this is actually a good story. So I didn't have an agent. So my agent, I was with the PFA, so they helped me with my contract to Luton and stuff like that. I didn't have an agent because all the agents that came for me were blood-sucking leeches. They didn't want me. But they didn't want me the year before when I was a third year scholar, and I was like trying to make my way in the game. And then as soon as I played a first team game, they're all on me. Oh yeah, like when they've actually signed my mates. So they'd signed some of my mates, they'd sign them up, but they're like, oh hi Curtis, don't want to speak to me. And then all of a sudden, move it 3 months, 6 months later, they're trying to get me because I've played in every game for the first team and we've won the first 9 of the first 10. And all of a sudden, oh, hang on. So that's the reason I didn't have an agent. And then basically the manager, Mike Newell, obviously played for the club, and he'd kind of mentioned that like Birmingham are coming to watch you and stuff like that, like around this January kind of time, and they had a look obviously, but didn't come in because I don't think the club would have sold me then anyway. And then from there, I end up staying this season. I end up winning League One, getting in the team of the year, and getting player of the division. Go into the championship, start well in the championship against the Premier League relegated teams, and I think that was my window to prove. We played Palace the first game, we just got relegated. We won 2-1, beat Southampton in the second game 3-2, had just been relegated, and in the third game we played Leeds, drew 0-0, and they'd just been relegated the year before. So it was a good market for me to show how I am against Premier League players. You know, Andy Johnson got the Golden Boot the year before, marked him out of the game. So that was my market. And then West Brom, I literally, again, didn't have an agent. I'm walking around shopping my mates in Romford in Essex, and I get a call from the gaffer, and I'm thinking, what have I done wrong? why is the gaffer calling me on the day off? Should I have been in? Should I have done something, like panicking kind of? And he goes, Kurt, just letting you know that West Brom have come in, and we want you to go talk to him. So I had to call the PFA, went up for a chat, got up there, blah, 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 go into the chat with, it was Nigel Pearson and Jeremy Peace at the time, and Brian Robson was away. And basically they've offered me a deal, and I think they thought I was a stupid kid that just wants to go to the Premier League. And of course I wanted to go to the Premier League, but I knew my worth. Like I said, I know my worth. They're buying me for 3 million, which was a joint record fee. And they were offering me what I could have got at Luton in my next deal. Wow. So I said, I'd turn around to the chairman and turn around to Nige and said, thank you for the opportunity, but no, thank you. I'm going to go back to Luton. So we got in the car. As we're leaving West Brom, Brucey's on the phone to my agent, and he's saying, Phil, get him to wait. I can get him in January. I can't do it now. I can do it in January. I haven't got a budget now, but I'll do it in January. Just tell him to wait for us in January. I want him, blah, blah. And then, that was like, well, in my head, I'm going back to Luton. I'll stay till January and I'll go to Blues. But then halfway down, I think I was on the M1 actually, almost heading home. Brian Robson's called from, I think he was at his place in Spain, I think. He's called and said, what's happening? Why have you been asking for X amount of money? We're like, we didn't even ask for anywhere near that. We just got told, this is what we're offering you, take it or leave it. And we said no. So he's been told lies. And then all of a sudden they came back, they managed to get a much better deal on the table. And I went and signed, and that was it. And again, regardless of the relegation, it's the best thing that happened to me, because I went there and I played 33 Premier League games after pretty much being in League One the season before. Yeah. So it's the best baptism. And then, and that was it. And obviously it ended up coming around the long way that I obviously played for Blues, but I also played for Brucey. But it's just one of those things. It just wasn't meant to be at that time.
Yeah. So we better get on to your 1 to 11, Curtis. Time's getting away from us now.
I can half waffle me. So,
there's a hell of a lot of questions. But we have to apologise to everybody. We just haven't had the time to get through all the questions. Really sorry. But Paul, fire away.
So what we do now, obviously, we asked you to pick your strongest 11 ever that you played with the Blues.
Yeah.
What's the first and foremost, obviously, I presume. Who's the manager first and foremost? I presume
manager Chris Hughton, of course.
Chris Hughton, yeah.
Can't look anywhere else other than Chris Hughton. Again, personal relationship with Alex McLeish, fine, but as a manager, not for me. Yeah. And Lee Clark, again, personal relationship, but I think with Clarkey in his time, I think he'd admit it as well. He's a bit of a hothead at times. So with me, fine. I'm an older player. I can take it. But some of those young players crumbled under him, I think. And that's why I think we struggled a bit. If I'm honest.
Players?
Yeah, a few of the young... Yeah, the players.
The players.
But yeah, so that's my manager, Chris Hughton.
Okay.
My shape is I'm more modern rather than just going 4-4-2. That's old school. I'm 4-2-3-1. So I'll start with my...
You're not rolling it out from the keeper, are you?
Yeah, I'm playing everywhere, I'm modern day now. So I'll start with my goalkeeper. I had to go with Jack Butland. Obviously played with Colin Doyle and played with Boaz Myhill in my time there. But Jack, as a young kid coming into that team, was a Rolls Royce.
Yeah.
I always said, when you see him in training, and I've always said about, especially young keepers, because of his size, and he was already good, he'll be unbelievable because he doesn't need to adapt to growing. Because sometimes you get the tall, lanky, 6'3" keeper, but he weighs 12 stone. And then all of a sudden, as he gets older, he grows to 14, 15 stone, but he needs to adapt to his body. Whereas Jack was already a unit. Like he's big, like a rugby player, Jack was. And, you know, coming into that team, again, I think it was out of the blue because, you know, I think Doyle thought he was going to be number one because obviously Boaz went back to West Brom. Doyle was still there, so he thought, I'm going to be number one. But Jack was promoted, I think, because there'd been sniffs around him, of course, because he always played for the England youth groups. And he came in and, was brilliant that season. You know, he got sold in the January to Stoke and stayed, obviously, on loan. But, I'm just, listen, he's still at a Premier League club in Palace, but I think it's sliding doors moments again that if he'd got the nod ahead of Pickford, we would be talking a totally different conversation. Because I'm biased, but in my opinion, at that time, he was pulling up trees for Stoke, and I thought he should have been the number one for England. Yeah,
he just needed that break, a bit like Ramsdale's got.
Ramsdale now. He was injured when Pickford came in, wasn't he? He was.
I think they were. It's basically them two fighting for it. You know, both of them were young, and it was kind of one of them. Once you get in at that age, you probably are going to be the keeper for the next 10 years, bar any lack of form. And
you made on it,
Yeah, and Pickford's never let England down. So, but Jack, obviously, the other side of it, I think his price tag killed him because I think because Pickford went for 30 million to Everton, Stoke then would always ask for 30 million for Jack, even though they'd been relegated, and it just got him trapped. And then he started losing confidence, started losing, I guess, his head. And unfortunately, you know, he went backwards a bit. But I'm hoping, he's still relatively young. I think he's 28. So for a keeper, he's still got another 10 years. I hope to see him come back to the very top because he's a good lad.
It's nice to see, wouldn't it?
Yeah, good lad and good player. So Jack's in goal, and then my back four, I'll go one at a time again. I'll go Stevie Carr. Can't look past Stevie Carr, captain, legend of a player in terms of going in there. You know, again, when you talk about personalities, talking about Marlon King would tell you, Kari would tell you, and it was a sterner kind of just a look. It's like a dad look. You know, when your dad tells you off, rather than actually shouting and hollering at you, like you just go, you give me the ball, and he just stare down at you, and you're like,
just that look.
Okay. Yeah, it's a look. It was just a look.
Me then, Curtis.
That's it. Yeah, and I'm not a scary person. Like when Kari gave you that look, you knew. But what I will say is for Kari, one of the best pros I've ever played with. He was 37, 38 in that championship season. He was on the bike every day, sweating out. Like if the session wasn't hard enough for him, he'd go on the bike, sweating out like literally for about 40 minutes up to an hour. His conditioning, his body, unbelievable, ripped, could get up and down that pitch as much as anyone could. So for me, he had to be in there. And again, when you get to know him and you get through the scary side of him, what a guy, what a top man as well. And someone to look up to. Well, even me as an older player, I know I was 28, but could look up to him and see, wow, this is what it takes to get to the top.
Best right back I've ever seen in my time at the Blues.
Yeah,
he's been fantastic.
Definitely.
And then I'll go two centre halves. I wasn't going to include myself because I think that's self-indulgent, but I've gone for Stevie Caldwell and Robbo, obviously Paul Robertson. Relationship with Stevie Caldwell that first season, hit the ground running. I think the partnership complemented each other nicely. Stevie was a fantastic footballer. Good technique. I know he's quite relatively, people might question his mobility, but he was a great footballer. And I used to look after him in terms of cleaning up everything behind. I was quick. I was obviously dynamic, and I think our partnership worked really well. And I think, with all due respect, if he'd been fit for those playoffs, it might have been a different story.
Yeah, I think if it makes you feel any better, Curtis, when Robbo did his team, he left himself out for you as well.
Okay, that's good. I was hoping he didn't have to leave himself out. I'm hoping he had me in his team anyway. But then obviously Robbo, alongside that, Robbo, I've obviously been at West Brom with him, and then obviously years later we reunite at Blues, and Robbo is exactly what you see on the tin, basically. It gives you determination, it gives you grit, it gives you heart, but also again, good footballer. From being a fullback, he's a good footballer, can use the ball. Sometimes, from a crowd, he could maybe get carried away with the crowd and make that crunching tackle that obviously he's fantastic, gets crowds off their feet, but then it gets him on a booking sometimes, and then you walk in tenterhooks.
Yeah.
But again, fantastic lad, great for the group, young lads, older lads. Obviously, he's one that, as a person as well. Again, still keep in touch with him. Fantastic guy, and someone I had the pleasure of playing with and really enjoyed playing with. And I'll go on to my left back. I'll go for David Murphy.
Yeah,
again, technician. I know you always talk about lefties. Lefties always look like they've got better ability. It's just a sweetener thing on the left foot. He always, but he had I've said it before, he's got a left foot that could open up a can of beans. It was honestly his technique. He could have played centre mid for us. He was a fantastic footballer. Delivery, get up and down the pitch. Again, good pro, looked after himself, knew that because he'd had problems before with his knee, looked after himself, and because he stayed fit that season, he was fantastic. And
chipped him with some goals as well, didn't he?
Yeah, and that's it. And again, because he's a good player, he just finds himself in the right place. And again, technique-wise, he just needs to hit it. Just as long as he hits it with a good technique, he'll put it in top corner, no problem.
Yeah.
And I think he's a player that if he'd stayed fit, he could have played more games at the top level, particularly at Middlesbrough, his home club. You'd think the players that came through there, the fact that he had to step away to make it, he would have played hundreds of games for them because he's such a good footballer and again, good guy. Quite more quiet than I guess like the likes of Robbo, unassuming, I guess, shall we say. But yeah, really good lad.
Why does nobody ever have a sweet right foot?
It's not a thing. I know I certainly haven't got one, so I'm not going to give anyone else props for having one. I think if we ever said anyone did, it would be a Beckham or a De Bruyne, but it's always the lefty just looks nicer on the eye, I think. But yeah, I'll go into my two holding midfielders now, or controlling midfielders, not holding, they're not defensive. I'll go with Jordan Much and Keith Fahy.
Yeah.
Now, Jordan Much, I'll speak about him first. Again, young player. When I turned up and we were in the Premier League, I think he was another player that should have been playing, because watching him in training and seeing what he can do with the ball, as well as get up and down, be dynamic, make tackles, I was like, this kid, because obviously you kind of hear about these names, but this kid is brilliant. Like, why ain't he playing? But obviously we're going through experience and the players playing ahead of him had that experience. But for me, I think there was an Everton game where he started and I think he got man of the match, scored a goal or maybe set up a goal. And I thought, this is him now. He's talking about the team next game kind of thing. So Jordan Much for me, great technician. Championship level was too easy for him. That's why I ended up getting the move. And again, another one that unfortunately I think injuries hampered his career. And he's another one that should have done what Nathan Redmond's done and had a good, be it 200, 300 games at Premier League level, but injuries hampered his career that he's had to go all around the world to kind of get that game time. But he's still hanging in there. I think last I know he was in
Australia,
Indonesia, I think. Oh, it's Australia now, yeah. So at least he's still enjoying it and he's still got a career. And then Keith Fahy, I think Keith is one of the most underrated players I've played with.
Yeah,
I think Keith was again technically.
Sorry, Curtis. I was going to say, I think in the cup final, he's my man of the match. He was, and when he hit the post, I wish he'd have scored because we were all brilliant that day. But Keith was amazing, and he came through at Arsenal as well. So it was a bigger thing for him. But he was again as a character, great lad off the pitch, very quiet, very stern in when he believes in something. He'll tell you again, similar to Kari, but not as intense. But what a footballer again. Go left foot, right foot. He'll drill passes, and I don't think. I'm not sure if it's necessarily at Blues, but I don't think as a player in general, he got enough credit for how good he was. Ireland International, was playing in a good Ireland side then. And a good player that again, unfortunately, that second year with Clarkey fell out with Clarkey, and then we lost him for I think 3 or 4 months, and I think that them players make the difference. When you with all due respect, you go in from Keith Fahy, who is all the experience Ireland National, and you go into Callum Riley, who's just starting and finding himself in the game. It's a totally different entity. And I think that's kind of again not cost us. Not necessarily we were going to get promoted and get into the playoffs, but we would have had a better go at it with those players there. So that's my my holding two, and then my next three. I'll go with Chris Burke on the right, Ravel Morrison in the 10, and Nathan Redmond on the left.
Brilliant.
Berkey, I've already spoken about it. Again, unbelievable. When he turned up, I think he was just around turning 30. People thought, good signing, steady signing, but people were so impressed with him. He obviously got player of the season in the first year, players player and supporters player of the season. He was fantastic. Like
we've had him on as well. We've had him on as well.
Well, everything he did turned to gold that year, and similar in the way that I spoke about Ashley Young earlier. If we got the ball to Berkey, with how quick he was, with his delivery, when you've got the ball to him, Marlon and probably Ziggy as well, sometimes, would be there as well. Get the ball in the box and his delivery, they're getting onto it, and even, he had the one where all season he'd chop in and cut in on his left. I think he scored more with his left that season probably than his right.
Yeah, I remember it.
He just had the chop in, similar to Glenn Johnson used to do it, cut in, whip in, top corner. And it was almost automatic, but people still didn't pick up on it. Berkey was fantastic for the club and a great player. Yeah,
Reece James, he's doing it nowadays as well, isn't he? For Chelsea.
Yeah. Well, he's obviously scored 2 great goals the other day. And then I go with Ravel, and that's not because he's at Derby now, but Rav is what I will say is the most technically gifted player I've ever played with.
Yeah, he's gifted.
He can see things, do things that I might not see on a video. Wow. He's that good, and honestly, like when he turned up, he came with a reputation. He was still young then, still obviously, came from on loan from West Ham, and I had a few friends in Manchester saying, "Look after Rav," and I was thinking, how am I going to look after him? I'm sure Gary Neville and Rio Ferdinand offered to take him in, and why is he going to listen to me? But I tell you what, he turned up. And I was thinking, didn't know what to expect. He was the most polite, nice kid you'll ever meet. In terms of round the place, with the people, with staff, P's and Q's. Oh, thank you, please, everything. No, not a bad bone in him. Obviously, just had issues when he's with his friends in Manchester. But technician, as a player, could do anything with the ball. The only thing that let him down was, now and then he'd have a little blip off the pitch, which was causing problems on the pitch. I think if he didn't have those, we would have seen an unbelievable full season. Because he was in the team. He was in the team, but because something would happen, he'd end up missing 2 or 3 games. He'd come back in, and then all of a sudden he misses one game, and it was always a stop-start. But a fantastic player. I think I remember the Palace game, if you remember that. I think we won 4-0. Yeah. And I think he run the show that day. Nathan Redmond was brilliant as well, but Rav run the show. So that's kind of sticks in my head. And obviously I'm with him now, and the ability is still there. Obviously he's older now, so maybe his potential and his promise, you're not looking at him as, he's going to go to this height, but he's still got the unbelievable brain. And what a fantastic player. And then Nathan Redmond, the biggest thing I could speak about Nathan Redmond is the National game at St Andrews. That's all I need. That's all I need to say. I turned up, and the kid he was a kid. I don't even think when I turned up, he wasn't even a scholar yet, but he was on school release. So he was training with the first team. So he's training with 23 sometimes, but training with the first team and involved with the first team. And then he was only 15, 16 at school. And then he obviously the next season he's pushed up with us because everyone left. And obviously it's a big ask, local lad, come through the club, and obviously the expectation that was on him because of who he played, and he took to it like a duck to water. Is like I say, it's one thing going into a championship game and turning it on against a team that maybe has just been promoted from League One. That's all easy to do. But that second leg where we won 3-0, it was the Nathan Redmond show. He literally, I've watched the show reel back a couple of times, and things he was doing, like taking the piss out of people, as well as like doing good things like beating someone crossing it. He was like megging people, going back, beating them again, and then starting, and it was just honestly. So that's the one great memory that I can talk about. But in general, what a fantastic player, and what a career he's having. I'm still disappointed that he hasn't had more of an England presence. I think if he'd been at a bigger club, in my opinion, would have got more recognition, because Nathan's ability is fantastic, and his character and his mentality. But he's having a good career. He's at Southampton.
I'm conscious we've only got a couple of minutes left, Kurt.
No problem. I'll jump in. And then man up top, Kingy.
King.
Marlon King.
Okay.
Already spoken enough about him in terms of his voice.
Did you get a headache with Wade Elliott, Curtis? Because there's a few people shouting for Wade Elliott as well. Did you have any problems like leaving him out?
It was, I look at a sheet and it's me trying to put together, because Wade was fantastic again, but it's just that, like I say, it's kind of the first names that come to my head. I'm thinking of it, and there was no one that wasn't enough to kind of knock me away. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Of those players. And listen, Wade was fantastic. And again, in that time for the club, the rebuild, character-wise, experienced player, had a promotion. He was brilliant for the club.
Have we got time very quickly, Chris, to do the who?
We'll do it quickly. And if we don't get it done, and if people can go onto the Facebook page, probably give us an answer that way, couldn't they?
Yeah. So what we do now, Curtis, we're going to play a clip. We're going to play a clip of a player that's played in the same squads as you. I'm always conscious saying played with you, just in case he hasn't. But I know he was in the squad at the same time as you. And if you think you know who it is, just tell us basically the first letter of his surname, and we'll see if our viewers can get it. So basically, he's speaking now. Just tell us the first letter of his surname if you think you know who it is.
Here we go.
Told me I was good, and everyone was talking about me and stuff, about it, how good I was, and so that's when I started taking it serious.
And then, obviously, fast forward a couple of years, he started playing for, was it Margate?
That's your lot.
And it's not Wayne Rooney.
So sorry, played with me at Blues.
Yeah. Yeah.
or was in the squads at Blues, shall I say?
Told me I was good, and everyone was talking about me and stuff, about it, how good I was, and so that's when I started taking it serious.
And then, obviously, fast forward a couple of years, he started playing for, was it Margate?
That's your lot.
Is that two different voices?
Yeah, there is two.
It's the first voice I'm after.
Oh, okay, because that's what threw me. I was like, the like rustly voice.
The first voice. So go on, Chris, once more.
Okay, here we go. Very last
Told me I
time.
was good, and everyone was talking about me and stuff, about it, how good I was, and so that's when I started taking it serious.
And then, obviously, fast forward a couple of years.
I can only think of it being a London accent.
Yeah.
So I can only think of it being Kingy.
No, it's not Kingy.
Nah.
Well, never mind.
Any idea?
Anybody got an idea there? No one's got an idea. Nobody. No.
Anyone on the shout box? No.
I was going to say Bentley, but I can't imagine his voice sounds like that.
No, he's yeah. Dave's like this. Dave talks like this, geezer. All right.
Oh, Jason Hughes has got it.
Has he? Oh my God.
That's impressive.
Oh my life.
He's got to get a prize for that, Chris, surely.
How could he get that from that?
How do you get that?
Unbelievable.
There's only one other player, but he wouldn't have played enough, I wouldn't have thought, to feature.
Unbelievable.
What?
His surname begins with an L. That's the only one I...
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, well done.
Can I say it?
Yeah, go on.
Is it Leroy Lita?
It is. It is. Yeah. Well done.
See, the only reason I thought is because I was speaking of Cockneys, and the accent sounds like, in my opinion, a black person's voice.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, if it's not Kingy, the only I'm thinking of London lads, and it was only Leroy that was obviously there, and I spoke about him briefly.
Play with him, Nick.
Anyway, everybody,
Leroy.
it's time to go. We've run over again.
Yeah.
So it's thank you to Alan Watton, Craig Courtney, Mark Adams, our special guests, Sharon. I'm going to try and remember, Dave, Brett, and Ryan. Yes.
You've been taking your tablets.
Paul Ipkiss and the wonderful Curtis Davies. Thank you all very much, and we'll see you all next week.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for your time, mate.
Cheers, Curtis.
Cheers.
Yeah, great.
No problem at all. Thanks for having me on.
We love you, what more can we say? let's see you in the cup. Singing our song, helping and sharing